everyone to the Maestro Night of Event training. In the next 90 minutes, we are going to just cover some of the basic things that you should know night of, whether you are doing the data entry, the event lead, just things that I think everyone would find helpful to know so that everyone's on the same page with Maestro. And we're going to go through from the very beginning, from when your guests walk in the door till the very end when the guests walk out the door. If you have any questions, everyone is muted, so feel free to chat them into the window. If it's a generic question that will apply to several people, we'll go ahead and discuss it. If not, if it's maybe particular to your event, then we can definitely talk offline after, and so that way we can stay on track here. So I'm just going to jump right in, and most of you guys are about anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks out from your event. So by now, we should already have our committee members in there, some auction items, whether they've been secured or committed in there, so our people going, sponsorships sold, tables set up. So I'm really not going to go too in-depth over any of that. We will see where you can find some videos on that if you feel that you're still at that spot. But right now, one of your main focus points would be getting ready for your guests to come to the event, and your registration is going to be the first thing they do when they walk in the door. I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with the Q-Check. Those are the black swipers that Maestro provides free of charge for you to use at your event to capture guest credit card information. These are PCI compliant and encrypted, so they are well within the guidelines for everything MDA requires. I want to show you really quickly, y'all can see Maestro on my screen, but I'm going to jump out of it for a second on where you can go to order those Q-Checks. Those can be ordered online, and you can go to maestrosoft.com and click on the support and training up at the top, and you need to log in with your license information. If you need your license, just let me know and I can get you that information. But for today's demonstration, I'm going to be the Houston office because that's whose license I like to borrow. So once you get to that login screen, you're going to enter all of your credentials. And right over here on the left where it says Request Q-Check Swipers is where you're going to go to order those swipers. And I'm starting with this because they recommend 4 weeks out. We like to leave wiggle room and say anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks these should be ordered. So your AA can do this, the event lead can do this. Anybody can log on here with the license information, fill out this form, and they'll get those shipped out to you very quickly. One thing I do want to tell you guys, it says how many guests attending. So, you know, if you're having 200 guests, you'll fill that in. And then you can pick the number of Q-Check readers that you guys want to have. They do make recommendations, but from experience, we feel those recommendations might be a little low. So feel free to double up on what they say. I know right here it says 3 readers for 500 guests, and in Houston we use 6 card readers for 500 guests. So feel free to go off this a little bit and order what you think is going to be enough to get your guests checked in quickly so that nobody's having to wait. All right. So once you get those Q-Check card readers in the mail, Maestro is going to send you a packet with those. And in that packet, along with your Q-Check card reader, you're going to have an envelope that also has a return mail label for you to send them back after the event. And please send them back after the event. Do not hold on to them because they will call me looking for them. But they're also going to send you 4 color-coded sheets. And I'm going to show you real quickly, if you go up to the top in your Maestro, this is an AmPro, you'll have a Q-Check button that you can click that, and it's actually going to show you those 4 sheets. Now, I don't have a code prepared for today, so I'm going to go to the website to open those sheets. But there's going to be a blue one that tells you how to do a practice run. I can tell you that the people that rehearse have been like, wow, this is so easy and so simple to use. When we first got our Q-Checks, we plugged them into the computers, we set them up, and then we took out our credit cards and just started swiping. because when you're in practice mode, you're not going to have any kind of information that's going to capture or charge you. It's all just, you know, fun and testing it and making sure that everything works and that you guys feel comfortable using the Q-Check. So please rehearse, 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 and use the blue sheet they're going to send you on how to do a practice run. And like I said, in just a sec, I'll click back over and show you a quick sample of what those sheets look like. They're going to send you an orange sheet on how to set up your Q-Check. Every Q-Check comes with a flash drive that you will plug into whatever computer has your main Maestro database on it, and you're going to download all those bidder numbers and all those people that you have been working so hard to enter, and then you'll transfer that to each registration computer, and it will walk you step by step on how to install Q-Check on those computers. Those computers do not need internet. They just need to be a PC. They don't work with iPads. They don't work with MacBooks. It needs to have some kind of Windows program on it for it to be able to use. So Maestro definitely recommends using PC computers. But this setup will walk you through how you need to do it. For the registration part, that's going to walk you through how you're going to collect that credit card information. And really, I'll tell you, when you have all your registration cards set up in alphabetical order, you know, somebody comes in, I'm John Smith, I go to the S, I find Smith, and he'll have a bidder number on his card. I'll type in his bidder number, and everything that I've entered into Maestro about him is going to populate onto this Q-Check record, and you'll simply swipe his card and go. I know it's kind of hard to picture, but once you get these, like I said, pull them out of the box and practice, and you'll see how easy it is to register people. Once you are finished with your Q-Check, you will download all the information from the computers back onto that flash drive they sent you, and you can go from one computer to the next. You don't have to stop and go back to your main computer. You'll plug the flash drive into each computer that you use for Q-Check, and then you'll download all that back into Maestro. And when you do that, if you see right here where it says attendee list, these people do not have any credit cards. I wasn't going to show that. But it's going to have your bidder numbers, your names of your guests, and it's going to have all their credit card information right here. So if somebody says, oh, I can't remember if I Q-checked, you can always go refer to that attendee list to see if they did. Or if somebody says, oh, I used my company card and this was for a personal purchase, I need to change my card. Anything related to that will all be done in this Q-Check section that we're looking at right here. But you will download all that credit card information encrypted, and then you will process all your charges right here in Maestro through the IOP system that they use. The green sheet is also going to tell you how to handle refunds, changing credit cards, adding credit cards. It's going to cover everything you need to know about Q-Check. And real quickly, I will switch back over to that Maestro page. Once you order your Q-Check, I'll go back to my support and training.
Do you want to answer that question, or we have to send her a message or something?
Oh, yes, it looks like some people are having trouble with audio. Can you guys chat in if you can hear me okay?
I do, so let me hear it.
Okay, good. I'm getting some chats that people can hear. And if you can't hear, we've got the phone number real quick. It is.
We're going to have to type it in.
Oh, I'll chat it in. Okay. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to type in this phone number in case anybody's having trouble hearing. Okay, sorry about that. Gotta love technology. All right. So, back to what I was saying about the Q-Check. When you log in on your Maestro account on their support and training tab, this is what the home page is going to look like. There's a tab you'll see for Q-Check, and right here it has all those different sheets that I was referencing. And if you go to the full Q-Check help site, it'll show you a picture of each one of those sheets if you want to take a look at it before you get your Q-Checks. But like I said, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. The people that have done that have been the most successful with it, and they've found it quite easy to use. As I was talking about earlier, the laptops, You will need a laptop for each card reader that you request. So if you request 6 card readers, you're going to need 6 laptops. These can be staff laptops if you guys have enough in the office. And used to, we just told people do an IT ticket request. I'm sure we all know by now that the IT is very limited on how many computers they have, and some weekends we have 3 or 4 events at a time going, so that may not be a possibility. You can always look at maybe your sponsors or committee members. If you have volunteers from Best Buy, see if anybody has a laptop that they could loan you, and if you have any tech-savvy volunteers, you can put them up at the front to help with your check-in. But definitely look into other sources than MDA's IT department, just because that is not always going to be available. So just something to think about. And then if anybody's using text-to-bed, which we'll get to later, you can definitely use iPads for that. So that's something else to look at, getting donated or just borrowing for the night for your event. All right, so at registration, we were talking about when the guest comes and collecting their information from, pulling their registration card to get them set up on Q-Check. The registration cards are actually really important because that is where you're going to capture all of your guest information, because we want to send them a thank you note, obviously, after the event, but as well as a tax receipt, and we'll look at how you can get those out of Maestro. But you want to make sure at registration that we are collecting their name, their phone number, their email, their address, making sure that we have plenty of ways to get in contact with that person, especially all my AA friends when it comes to accounting. If you have an issue with a credit card, it can be tough when you spend a week trying to get a hold of somebody because maybe their email is bouncing back or their phone number is not working. So those registration cards are not in Maestro. A lot of staff have just created their own, but I wanted to hit the high points of you must collect some type of form. I would recommend more than one of how to get in contact with that person, because we want to make sure that we keep up on MBA's side with our tax receipting. Also at registration, when people come in, it's nice to know who's coming, where they're going to sit. Maybe you have a walk-up and you don't know where you're going to seat them. There's a few reports that I found very handy to have at registration that I want to show you really quickly. Any report that you're going to want out of Maestro, 9 times out of 10 is going to come from 7 print supporting materials and 1 print general report. I know this is a whole lot of reports, so if you have some free time, you can check out and see which ones are your favorite, but I'm going to show you some of my favorites for registration and for making sure that as a volunteer or as a staff person, I feel completely ready to take care of someone when they come up to registration. I'm going to use the search bar up at the top. This is actually a really quick way to kind of narrow down your reports, and you can also use this blue bar on the side that says Add to Favorites. So that way you can narrow it down to your favorite reports if you want, so you don't have to be looking at this big long list. But one of my favorite ones is this attendee check-in list by name, table, table name, and bid number. And this one is just going to tell you, let me zoom in a little bit, their attendee's name, and if they have a spouse, their bidder number, their table number. If they have a table name, you can put that there. How many people they have paid to come to the event, when they paid, and if they still have any outstanding funds due. And I do apologize if anyone hears a fire truck. We are right down the street from the fire station, so we might hear that throughout this call. I apologize about that. So this is just a great report if you're trying to keep track of who came to the event, or if somebody's like, oh, hey, real quick, Jay Fisk, he forgot his bidder number. You can just pull up the report. It's in alpha order. You can see, okay, he's bidder 105. Or if someone says, hey, Erica Hanberry, can't remember what table she's at, you have her table number right here. So this is a nice report to have, as well as a seating report. I'm going to show you one of those really quickly. And this is nice for when you have people that are walk-ups, or if they're replacing somebody and you're not sure where to put them. On this seating report, it's going to tell you the table number, the people that are already seated at that table, and how many seats are available. Since this is a sample database, we have lots of seats available. But you can see right now, table 1 says you have 1 seat oversold. So if you have too many people at a table, then you need to look at rearranging that table. But this is also great for knowing how many seats you have available. So if I have a couple that walks in or they're replacing someone, I can find that person on the list and know where they're sitting, or I can say, oh, we didn't know these people were coming, but thankfully we have 7 seats available over at table 3, so that's where we're going to put them. And this one's nice because it also lets you know who's sitting at that table, so maybe you want certain people to sit together, or you don't want certain people to sit together. So this is just handy to have at registration when you're trying to find quickly where to put someone, or if they want to sit with a particular person and you didn't know they were coming, how to find that. So speaking of table seating, I do want to look really quickly at how we do our tables and the fair market values and seating guests at tables, because we all know that the day of the event, things change. People call, they email, they have requests, and things just are always in motion. So for tables, you'll find that at 4, prepare for the event, and 1, set up tables and meals. And this is where you can find all the tables that you have set up to date. You'll see how many you've sold, how much people have paid for them. You can set the max number of seats. So if you're looking for a particular table and say that Lenny said, hey guys, I'm bringing 2 more guests, is there any way I can get a 12 top table? You can quickly come over here, change Lenny to a 12 top, and that way when you try to seat 2 more people at his table, Maestro's not going to tell you that you're overseating. So this is where you can just come take a quick look at what tables you have, how many people you're going to have sitting at these tables, and then if you want to actually change a person from table to table, you'll do that in their people record. So if we're at 3 and 1, where we enter our people and companies, our event registration tab is where we go to do that. So if we find that, hey, this guy's coming, he's a friend of Kroger, we need to make sure he's at a Kroger table, then you can open up this seating, you can find a Kroger table and sit him there. Again, how many seats are available is in this far right-hand column, and if you see a parentheses, you have too many people at that table. That, or you accidentally set it up for the wrong number of people, which we just looked at how we can go change that. So this is where you can go to move people around, because we all know that that will happen day of. And again, then you can have those great reports at registration. So just kind of going through our night of the event, we've got people registered, we've Q-checked them, we've collected their credit card information, and we are going to send them on into the ballroom or the reception or whatever room you guys have set up for the auction. So Maestro, as long as you get the information put in there right, it'll spit out just about anything for you. And for anything auction related, you're going to be at 5, prepare for the auction. And then all these different categories here of things we can do. So I'm just going to quickly go through a few of these. So 1 is setting up your auction type. This is where you set up your categories. Like if you have a live auction and a silent auction, if you have a super silent auction, if you have a camper art auction, this is where you'll go to identify all of those sections. And you can also put what time they're opening, closing. You can check what's live auction. If you're using text-to-bid, which we will talk about more, you can check which items you want to show up on your text-to-bid. So this is just where you can go to set up all your different auction types. When it comes to actually entering your items, that's going to be found at 5 and 2. So when you enter up your items, you'll pick an auction type. Don't worry about the catalog number because Maestro will actually assign those for you very quickly. But you'll put in your name, your description, any restrictions, and then just follow these all the way across the bottom. The date will populate for you, the fair market value, you put that in. And as of right now, the minimum bid will populate for you as well. It starts at 30%, but you guys are welcome to change that, and I can show you where that is in just a moment. And then your bid increments will do a 10% increase. So if you want to change that, we'll look at it, but that's how that's going to work. When you start entering in your fair market value, it'll do it for you. So I think this one doesn't have anything prepared. So Like this one right here has a $500 fair market value, $150 minimum bid with a $35 minimum raise. And we'll look at the bid sheets and how all that's going to work here in a minute. So this is where you're going to go to enter your items, and I show you this because day of, if somebody says, hey, I just saw your table tent has a typo, we don't want to just change it on the table tent. We want to come change it in the actual item record. So whoever's in charge of your auction, I really think it's important that they understand this part of Maestro in case nobody's available to be making these auction changes. It's really helpful to know how to just jump in here and go find the auction item you're looking for. And any change you make in this screen will be reflective on your catalogs, your table tents, your bid sheets, any kind of printed materials which we're about to look at. You only have to change it one time. You don't have to go change it in the catalog and then go change it on your table tent and your bid sheet. So that's why I just really wanted to point this out about where you go to correct that. And then the second tab, enter or assign donors. This tab's important as well because when you go to print those, if you have donor info printing and maybe John Smith donated an item, but he doesn't want his name there, you know, we will add him as a donor up here, but you can come right down here where it says alternate donor name for this item only, and you could put in, like this one says, friend of Microsoft, because up here, Mr. Kerry Landers, he doesn't want to be recognized as the donor of that item. So that, again, is just something that kind of will pop up day of when people are like, oh, this says John Smith donated it, but he doesn't want his name. Then you can come here to correct that. So those are just two of the big things that people will be trying to correct day of. Enter item detail and picture just really quickly. If you are using text-to-bid and you are uploading pictures, please do not put your pictures into AmPro, the Auction Maestro Pro that we're in right now, because it will not reflect to text-to-bid, and I don't want anybody spending more time than they have to with the pictures. We'll look at that a little bit later, but do not put any pictures into Maestrosoft that you want to use for text-to-bid. That's just a quick side note. All right, next is the View Filter Items screen, and this is actually just, it's like a line item view of everything we were just looking at. So it shows your tracking number. It shows if you want it to show in the catalog. If you're trying to print a table tent and it's just not showing up in the screen, come make sure that it is checked to show in the catalog. If that button is not checked, then this information will not populate anywhere. This is also where you can take a look at your fair market values and your minimum bids and your minimum raises, and if something has a guaranteed price. Maybe you have some autographed memorabilia that you don't want to have a guaranteed price, or some people know it as the buy it now price. If you don't want that, this is where you can come to clear that information out so that it doesn't print on any of your materials. Excuse me. Also, you have your item categories you can review really quickly. Just make sure everything has its name, make sure it has a type, and then after the fact, it'll give you some more information over here to the blue, but we won't look at that right now. Like I was saying earlier, though, about not worrying about your catalog numbers, Maestro will do that for you. Right down here at the bottom, you can auto-number your catalog, and Maestro will actually do it based on the value of your items if you so choose to do it that way. So if you wanted to number your red silent auction, or if you just have one silent auction, then you would just pick silent auction. You will pick which auction type you want to number, tell it what number you want to start at. Some people, you know, they want to start at 1,000 instead of 100. However you want to do it, you tell it to start that number. And then you can pick the median position you want to start at, and then just tell it to number using simple profile. This one has already numbered, so I'm not going to worry about that, but that's how you would go do that if you want Maestro to automatically number your items for you. And I would recommend it just because it's a time saver. If you want to package items together, we recommend that you enter each item separately and then package it through the Create a Package feature. When you do that, it'll show you all your items that you have set up in the catalog, and you'll just go through and you'll check whatever you want to combine and click Create Package. The only downside to the feature, and I hesitate to call it that, but the only thing that you would need to do is look at the description of that, because it will just merge all of your descriptions simultaneously, and there won't be a break or a period, so you'll have to look at redoing that description. But on a monetary side, it'll pull your fair market value and your minimum bid and minimum raise, and if you want to use the buy it now guaranteed price, it'll automatically pull all of that together for you. And you'll see right here it will change the colors. So that's why these items are this darker color, because they're packaged together, and it gives them a combined tracking number and catalog number. So that was kind of a lot so far, and if anybody has any questions you want to chat in, I'll give you guys just a second to kind of digest all of that and see if we have any questions before we move on. Or if anything maybe I covered a little too quickly that we'd like to review. Okay. Well, with that being said, we're going to move on to some of our printed materials that we will get from all this data entry and catalog numbering and packaging creating that we just covered. Your printed materials are going to be found under 5 and 4. This is where you can print. I'll show you the drop down really quickly. There are award certificates that you can print that it's going to be showing your, it's going to be pulling, if you say that you want to create a certificate, it'll pull the information that you've put in to create that certificate for you. You can do it on pre-printed paper, or if you have your own borders, it'll do that for you as well. Catalogs, I'll show you a quick preview. We like the 3-column catalog because you can print it, and then with the trifold, it fits nicely into a coat pocket, so people aren't having to carry it around if you are doing printed catalogs. So I'll show you real quickly what that looks like. So here's a preview of that catalog. It has your item number, the name of it, the description, who donated it, and the fair market value. And again, if you have sections of your auction or live and silent, it'll differentiate between those. One thing I want to note really quickly, if there was something that you wanted to add to that, or maybe you felt like there wasn't enough space for it to show the donor and you wanted to remove that, this report detail is what determines what information is pulled in that catalog. If you choose to alter this, it will not go back to how Maestro has it in the sample database. So if you said you wanted to take off this donated and you delete that, and maybe for your next event you want it to have donated, that's going to be a call to Maestro, and they'll help you with the code and putting that in there. And I know this from experience because I've deleted it on accident before. So I would really, unless you just really are against how something looks, I would not touch this report detail, because I've had people do it and then they wonder why their catalogs look all crazy. One other thing about the catalog is if you if you want to format this a little differently, or if maybe the font isn't the right size or the right font that you want, you can export this to Word, and you can totally play with this. If you want to put a border on it or divide it up, however you want to do it, then you can definitely export, and it'll make this a little more customizable for you. But that is where you would go to print out your award certificates if you need them. Your catalogs, as you can see, they have quite a few options, so that's up to you guys which ones you want to use. And then your table tents, if you're going to have table tents. We prefer the full page center, but again, up to you. And just here's a quick preview of what's on your table tent. It'll have the name of your event, the item number, name, description, donor, value, if there's an expiration date, if you want to add restrictions on there. Again, this can be exported to Word, and if you want to space this out a little bit more, this is just how Maestro has it set up. And then, like I said, there's other options that you guys can look at. You can mess with the font and the size here, but I was just saying export to Word in case you wanted to get a little more fancy with it. Again, they have the report detail if there's anything you want to add or take away, but I just caution you on messing with that because once it's done, it's done. The other thing I wanted to talk about is using bid sheets. I have referenced text-to-bid a few times, but I know a lot of people are still using bid sheets, which is great. And Maestro has a really great bid sheet that they do. We've done the 18 steps, and we've done, oops, I always pick landscape when I want portrait. We've done the portrait, and actually Maestro recommends this format because people like to bid right here. That's just where their eye's drawn to, and they feel like if they bid over here, it might be a little on the cheap side. If they bid over here, that might be a little bit more than the item's worth. But you can see for this one is priced for stardom. This one actually has a value of $200. So if people want to come bid over in this area, if they bid up here, they're right on the money at the value of the item. And if not, they're close. So this is a great bid sheet to use. We also have printed them on NCR, thank you, NCR paper. So that way, during the event, people can write on the top copy, and when you're ready to close the auction, you'll just pick up, and I would try to do it in this order right here. That says A101, A103. I would pick them up by item number in order and take it back to accounting, and then you still have the bottom copy so guests can kind of walk around the room and see if they want anything. And also, yes, somebody did chat in about the importance of letting Microsoft do the bid steps. One, it's just a time saver in general, so you're not trying to calculate all this in your head, but it's set up to where it's going to make sure that it puts you at the value that you're going for. This one is set up for 150% of the value of the item, which is, what they recommend doing. And here's that guaranteed purchase. Like I said, if you may not want that on some of your items if they're memorabilia, but definitely use that bid step review for Maestro. And these odd numbers here are kind of nice because people, when it's just even, it's too simple. And granted, people aren't having to do the math here, but we like the odd numbers. It keeps it interesting, and people feel better about it. I don't know why. I've heard that so many times that people don't like the even numbers. So this is what they'll look like though if you are going to use the printed bid sheets, and also, like this one tells you, this item requires a certificate. So if you are printing your own certificates, having a folder and a file of all of those in there, this will let you know, hey, this person won this item, and you can see right down here, you're going to need to go into that file and find that certificate. If you are not using bid sheets and you are going to use text-to-bid, that is something that you'll follow a lot of the same steps. You're going to enter all your information into Microsoft. You're going to, look at everything in here, make all your edits in here just like you would anything else. It's just the step of actually transferring all this information into text-to-bid. So you'll see up at the top, you're going to have a bar that says, up in the bar, you're going to see you have a button for text-to-bid. And this is what it's going to look like. If you're using text-to-bid, you get to pick a keyword for your event. This has to be a unique code word, and it needs to be a word that other people aren't using. So I know that Houston used the word passport at their event this past year. So you can't call Maestro and tell them you want to use the word passport, because that one has already been used. So they can let you know what words are available. But the reason that is because we all use the same, if you can follow my cursor where it says phone short code, we all use the 71760. Anyone who uses text-to-bid, that's going to be the number your people text to. So that's why everybody has to have a different keyword. If you want to use text-to-bid, that cannot be ordered online. You will have to call Maestrosoft and actually order that over the phone with a representative. So once you've called and you ordered that and you've set up your keyword, you'll enter all that information here, and you'll use this upload items to text-to-bid, and this is where you can choose what items you want to upload. So if you want to upload your red silent auction, your white silent auction, and your raffle tickets, then you can pick those. And so now it says over here that I have 3 auction types that I'm uploading into text-to-bid. If you want to upload merchandise for a wine pool, and actually I probably should have put the raffle tickets under merchandise, you can, again, it'll be the same steps where you click here and you tell it which items you want to upload. And I'm going to show you where you can set all this up here in just a minute. But again, so if we said we want to enter our T-shirts and have those on text-to-bid, then we'll have 1 merchandise available. If people are purchasing, if you allow them to do cash, I caution you against that, because if people are buying in cash and then it's not getting recorded on the phone, it could throw off how much you actually have left. So that's just something to consider. This step 3, preview list of invalid items, is gray, and that's awesome, because gray means I don't have anything wrong. If that were highlighted and I clicked it, it would tell me you have 2 items with the same catalog number, or you have an item that doesn't have a description, or you have an item that doesn't have a fair market value. So if you have anything wrong with what you're trying to upload into text-to-bid, it's going to come on this report, a preview list of invalid items. Once you've corrected all of those issues, hopefully you won't have any, you can preview the list of what's going on to text-to-bid and make sure it looks how you want. So see, I have this autograph poster, and I see right now it has a guaranteed price. I'm going to want to go back in Maestro and remove that guaranteed price so that it doesn't upload onto my text-to-bid, because I don't want it to have a guaranteed price. This is also a great chance if you can get a couple sets of eyes on it just to make sure spelling's okay, and you know, your minimum bids are where you want it, the raises are where you want it. You know, if you have something that is a $5, you're like, oh, I want that to be 4, I want it to be that odd number, then that's where you can preview this and go back and change it before you upload to text-to-bid. Because once you upload, you've uploaded. Any changes you make have to be done on the website in text-to-bid, and I've just found it so much easier to make all those corrections in Auction Maestro Pro before you go up to the web. And then the last thing you see here is the item upload count. Text-to-bid does have a flat fee to use, and then you're charged based on the number of items that you upload. So if you have paid to upload 200 items and you upload 202 items, you will get a bill. So package items together, do what you need to do to keep your item count at what you told Maestro that you were going to use. And be prepared to have an idea of what that number is when you call to order your text-to-bid, so that you can know how much you're anticipating spending when you do order that. So once everything's finalized, ready to go, you can click Upload Item List to text-to-bid, and it's very, very quick. It'll put all of your stuff onto your text-to-bid site, and then you're ready to go.
Catherine, 1 second. There's a question about the cost of text-to-bid here, and I can answer that for you. It really depends on the number of items you have, and so there's a schedule that we can put on the Resource Center for you under Maestro. So again, it's based, there's a flat fee, I think it's $995, and then it's based on the number of items. So look on the Resource Center, probably Catherine will get it on there by end of business tomorrow, so you know, but you can always have that conversation with Maestro. And the other question is, will this recording be available for everyone? And the answer to that is yes. That also will be on the Resource Center by when, Catherine?
We can do that by Friday. It'll be up there by Friday. And then the last thing, I don't want to focus too heavily on text-to-bid because they do have separate trainings for that. I know not everyone on the call today is using it, but if you are using it, you can print out business size cards straight from Maestro with your information. So really quickly, I'm just going to do All-Star because I know that's a keyword that we used at a little practice event we did for some of our Gala All-Stars. And your password will be your keyword. Maestro will tell you that, but I just want to show you with the info. These are cards you can get. It'll tell you text the word All-Star to 71760, and it tells people what to do. You tap the link that you're going to get. You enter your bid number. In the latest version we did, it actually asked us to enter our first and last name as well, and then it's going to take you straight to the site where you're going to have all your items uploaded, photos if you have them, and then people can just start scrolling through and bidding. You can also get bidder numbers and table numbers on here if you want. These are a little sporadic because of how this database is set up, but once you have all your bidder numbers and table numbers assigned, you can also get those to populate too. A lot of people will print this on a label and stick it to a program, stick it to the back of the catalog. They'll stick it to something so that guests aren't having to carry this around, but it's something that you can get straight out of Maestro already done for you. And before I forget, I did tell you about setting up some of those user defaults when it came to your auction and some of those predetermined amounts like the 30% minimum and the 10% raise. If you go to define user defaults and set up system defaults, this is where you can put what you want your minimum bid to be. And if you want it to you can check the box if you want it to automatically calculate the minimum bid based on whatever percentage you set in here. So again, that was over at 2 and 2, set up system default. And yes, if you have sales tax for your items that you want it to automatically calculate while you're putting them in, you can check that box as well for the taxes. If it's something that you plan to pay after the event, then I wouldn't check this just yet. You can go back into your items later and check that button, but I wouldn't do it prior to the event or it will actually charge your guest the sales tax. So again, went over that quite quickly. Y'all been great about chatting in some questions. If anybody has questions over that part of it, feel free to chat those in, or if you want me to go back over something. Otherwise, I'm going to move over to the data entry for when people start buying all this stuff. So I'll give just a second here to see if anybody had any questions about everything we've gone over so far.
So this is Chris. I'm going to hop in here because Catherine mentioned the guaranteed bid or the buy now price. Just a cautionary tale here. 150% is a great number for almost all of our items in our auctions. Probably our best auctions are getting 100% of the value overall, and our average is in the 50 or 60% overall. However, there are some really priceless things like jerseys and, autographed memorabilia, etc., that 150% of whatever value, and I'll talk about that in just a second, whatever value is established may be way less than your audience is willing to pay. So on those items, when you romp down your list and look at your items and say, oh, this is going to be one of those hot items that people are going to really bid up, make sure you do not have it set for 150%. Go back and look carefully on text-to-bid because the default is to go for a guaranteed bid. And you want to really look at this carefully. Whoever's in charge of your auction needs to be the person that does that survey and checks it over so you don't accidentally send things out to your audience that you wish you had a bigger opportunity for them to bid on. But then don't get greedy and set your number at 200% for everything, because that's going to set your bid steps so small it's going to take forever for you to get where you need to be. So 150% rule of thumb, no guaranteed price on those really priceless things, but you are required to establish a value by IRS law. So you can't just say it's priceless and it's a $1 autographed jersey from J.J. Watt, who's a big football player here apparently. You have to go to a marketplace like eBay or a sports store that sells autographed memorabilia and determine what the fair market value is on that. You don't have to put it on your bid sheets, but you do have to establish it. So any questions on that, please chat them in or send us an email. And there's a question about, can we get a sample registration card so we have some place to start?
And yes, I will send that out. And I'm going to send the sample from Houston just because they have everything I was talking about earlier, the information we want to make sure we capture is there. And they also have a spot for people to check if their company has matching funds, which is something that we've really been trying to stress about, the different opportunities to ask that, and registration is the first time you're going to start interacting with your guests, so that's a great time to do it. And they also have it logoed, and they use that as part of a sponsorship opportunity. So that's just a great example. And also, they leave room at the top of their registration card, and they print labels that have the guest information from Maestro on it. So if you already have someone's name and phone number and email and company and address, they don't have to fill that out again. You can just ask them to verify if that information is correct. So we can, I'll send that out though so everybody can see that. So I haven't got any more chat questions. I'm going to keep going on to the actual data entry that your person who is running the Maestro show that night is going to do. So just to kind of go back over it, we've gone through registration. People have Q-checked, and they're bringing, hopefully you have a runner bringing those completely filled out registration cards back to your accounting room, because if people are filling those out and we're getting more information, we're going to want to record that into Maestro. You don't have to do it that night at the event. You can absolutely take those registration cards back to your office, and then when things kind of slow down a little bit, start entering in that guest information. But if we've had them take the time to fill it out, we want to take the time to input their data. So you've got those registration cards coming. We've got all our materials printed for the night of, and our check-in list and our table list and everything that staff might need from us to be able to help guests. So now they've registered, they're in the room, they're looking at the auction item and all the revenue enhancers, and they're spending money. So for the night of the event, you'll go to 6, conduct the auction, and 2, during the auction. And this is where most of the night you're going to live and have all your data entry take place. And just one comment that I got really quickly, on the registration cards that I'm going to send you, you will see that there is not a place for guests to put in their credit card information. And that's good, because we don't have to worry about locking that up or shredding or anything like that. We will capture all of that through the Q-check system. So thank you for that comment. Okay, so here's where when people start bidding or buying items, this first tab, enter actual bids, is where you will go to enter all the bids for your auction. Silent and live and camp, whatever auction types you have, everything you've entered will populate in this section. So you'll scroll down, you'll see all your different auction types. If you're doing bid sheets, this is why I said pick them up in number order. catalog number order, because that's how they're going to appear over here. So usually the fastest way to do it is I have item 101, and I can type in the bidder number and how much they paid. And sometimes it's nice to have two people helping with this so they can make sure that, while one person's typing, the other one's looking and making sure that it's right. But this is where you'll go to enter all your winning bids for your silent and live auction. If you are using text-to-bid, you will actually download all of the winning bids into this screen, and it's all going to populate for you, which is awesome. Saves a lot of time on the data entry if you're using text-to-bid. But if not, this is where you will come to enter all those winning bids. And I'll go back in a little bit and show you how we can download from text-to-bid. But I'm going to stay here for right now. Next is enter fund and item bids. Fund and item is for your mission drive, research moment, whatever you want to call it. This is where you're going to enter those donations. And you can set up, if you have preset levels or a form that people can fill out with preset contribution levels, then you can actually right here in this yellow section, you can double click and you can enter in all of those preset amounts. And if you have send a kid to camp for 1 week, $800, or buy an hour of research, or other, whatever levels you have, you can set those up. And I have asked people to, when you collect those sheets or those cards, if you put them in order by what they did, so if you have 1 kid to camp for 1 day all together, and 1 kid to camp for 1 week all together, you can just come and pick from the drop down. So say I'm at the $500 level, and you can just go and you can enter people's bidder numbers, and it automatically pulls that $500 level. And then I can type in the next one, and it's going to keep pulling that same level until I go up to the top and change it. So that's just been the fastest way I've found to get these entered. So fund an item, this will strictly be for your mission or research. And the reason that is because everything entered in this section is 100% tax deductible. The guests aren't getting anything in return for this contribution, so this will be 100% tax write-off on the receipts that we're going to look at here in a minute. So that's why it's real important to make sure anything that's mission, research, camp related, that we are going to put it in this section. Another great thing you can get from this section is this FAI, which stands for your fund and item, recorder sheet. This sheet is wonderful for trying to collect donations in a hurry, especially if you have an auctioneer who maybe he's calling out the bidder numbers at who's at the $1,000 level, oh, 102, 104, getting the room excited. Every level that you set up in that section we just looked at where you could customize your levels, it'll populate at the top. And then you can just go down the page and fill in your bidder number. I'm trying to make this a little bigger. So you can see if you have 4 bidders at the $1,000 level, it does the math for you and tells you you're at $4,000. And you can see that goes on across the page and down the page. And then you could write a quick total down here, capture who wrote down this information in case, maybe a 7 looks like a 1. If you have any questions. But this is a great way to kind of get that quick total on the spot, because 9 times out of 10, people don't record the mission immediately into Maestro because there's just not always enough time. That's usually a little later in the program, and you've already delivered some of the receipts. So I would use that FAI recorder sheet if you want an instant number, and then people can, calculate on a calculator really quickly. And then again, when things kind of slow down, you can come back to the office to put this information in.
And it's also recommended that 3 people do this so you can compare. Your auctioneer needs to read out the bid numbers, and it gives you a way to provide information to the auctioneer. If say you're at $27,000 and your goal was $30,000, right away the auctioneer knows he's got $3,000 to go, or she's got $3,000 to go, and can tell the crowd, hey, we just have $3,000 to go to hit our goal. And so it gives you instant information, but 3 people to make sure you get it right.
Yes, that's definitely recommended. Enter merchandise. This is where you will put any kind of revenue enhancer, raffle tickets, lucky locker, all those things that people do at their galas. This is where you'll enter all of this. And the reason this is different is because people actually are getting something for this. They do a $50 wine pool, they get a bottle of wine. So these are not going to be that 100% tax deductible, and that's why they're over here where in the separate section where you enter the merchandise. Again, you see this little white area up at the top with the drop down. If you double click in that, you've seen this screen before when we were looking at text to bid. This is where you can enter all the different type of merchandise that you're going to be having at your event, or we call them revenue enhancers, how much you're going to be selling them for, and then the value that you're going to be selling them for. So that's where that whole tax deduction thing will come in, about people not getting 100% write-off on that. If you do have tax, you can enter that here. If not, you can leave it 0. And if you want to track it by item category, you're welcome to do that as well. And then the quantity, like I was saying earlier, if you're using text to bid and you only have 100 of something, they caution you against taking cash purchases because it's going to hold on to this quantity, and then it's going to throw your quantity off if people are paying cash and not making the purchase through their phone. That's where you can go do this. They also have a bid ticket, a bid sheet. So it'll tell you what item it is, and you don't have to collect people's names and phone numbers if you've already collected it at registration. But this is where you can put the bidder number, and you know how much they cost. So somebody can have a sheet that they fill out and carry around with them while they are selling those revenue enhancers. All right. And then the last tab is the print review statements. This is where we're going to go at the end of the night to get people their receipts for their purchases. This is kind of a two-step process because we actually recommend doing this twice. So for the first set of receipts, your silent auction is going to close before people go on with the program. Sometimes they go in another room or off to another area and go on with the live auction and the mission moment and their dinner and so forth. So once since your silent auction will be closed before all of that happens, it gives you a little bit of time, especially if you're just downloading from text to bid, to collect all the revenue enhancers people have done up until that point, because again, normally that's over by the time the program starts. And then it gives you some time to enter in all of those auction item bids if you are using manual bid sheets. So we recommend that once you have all your items for the auction and your revenue enhancers entered, you can start printing receipts. So while the program's going on, volunteers can be packaging up those items for the guests, so when they're ready to leave at the end of the night, they just walk up, say, John Smith, bidder 307, and the volunteers can just pull their items, send them on their way with their receipts, and they're going to be good to go. We also recommend printing your receipts in color, on colored paper, based on if people quick checked or not, because I know not everybody gets 100% compliance with Q-Check, or some people say, oh, I'm not going to give you my credit card, I'm not going to buy anything tonight, and then they get in the room and start spending. So when you print these receipts, this blue bar up here, we recommend that you print quick check only in one color. So you know, okay, all these green receipts, they're good to go. These people, we have their credit card information, and we know that we don't need to collect a form of payment from them. So you would print your quick check only, and only the ones that have activity, so that way we don't get a bunch of blank receipts. And they're all going to have a balance due. Just because we have their credit cards, we haven't charged them yet. So if they say, oh, well, I gave you my credit card, why does it say I owe $130? We haven't charged the card yet, so it's going to show a balance due. And so they don't need to worry about that. It'll show down at the bottom of the receipt that they have a card on file. So when you come to print these, depending on how your delivery is going to go, every event's different, you can sort it by bidder number. You can sort it by table number, and you can sort it by name. 9 times out of 10, your bidder number and your name are the same, because if you use Maestro to assign your bidder numbers, it does it in alphabetical order. If you have the ability to deliver the small items to the tables, that's a great way to get your receipts by table. And then, if they just want a certificate, or maybe they want some gift cards, and those are things you can kind of sneak in during dessert or the program or something to deliver to their table, then the table one is really helpful. So our Quick Check people gave us our credit cards so they don't have to wait. We're going to have all their stuff good to go when they're ready. And then you want to come over here and do all not Quick Check. If you see where I checked that right there. All not Quick Check. And these people can be on red paper or yellow paper, anything to draw your attention. Or if a volunteer sees someone with a yellow piece of paper in their hand, they know that they're not supposed to give them their item without first collecting a form of payment. Or maybe they want you to invoice their company. It just needs to be noted somewhere that this person has not given us a method of payment for their purchases. And so all not Quick Check that has activity, and again, bidder number, table number, name, so you can choose how you want to print that. Really quickly though, I'm going to click on Quick Check and show you a preview of a receipt. Okay, I don't care. See if it will. Okay. So this shows me this is bidder 101. He did not Quick Check, and I have his name, his address, all his information, and these are all of his purchases. It shows his fair market value, how much he actually paid for it, so then over here it calculates his potential tax deduction. Also, if they want an auction item, I'll tell you what number it is and if it requires a certificate. So that's always good to check. If you're not sure if somebody needs a certificate or not, it'll tell you right on the receipt if they do. And then it'll tell them their balance due, and it has a little thing you can cut off at the bottom. Once you get your information put in here, it will not say pay Microsoft, it'll say pay MDA with our tax ID number. If they did Quick Check, like I said, this is a sample database. It is not set up for Q-Check. It would say Q-Check up here under their bidder number, and then down below it would give the last 4 digits of their credit card, especially if somebody says, oh, I don't know if I gave you the right card, if it was my corporate card or my personal card, and it'll tell them on the bottom of their receipt. But this one doesn't have Q-Check set up, so it's just a sample. So you'll want to print these one time to send on with people with their silent auction items, or if they want a copy of what they purchased for the revenue enhancers. If they did a mission moment purchase, that, like I said, you normally won't have time to get that entered before guests are ready to leave. So in that case, if anybody asks, we just let them know you will be getting your receipt with the tax deductible amount with your thank you letter in the mail. And normally we try to get those out, 7 to 10 days post-event with all those additional purchases on there. And most people will not have an issue with that. They kind of know what they spent. So if someone really needs it, you could enter it and print it. But most of the time, that will not be an issue. So you'll print these once after your silent auction and revenue enhancers are finished, and then you'll print a second one after the event with any additional purchases they might have made, and we'll send those out with their thank you letters. And then same thing for live auction purchases. Most of the time there's only a few of those, so we can get those on the receipt beforehand, but if not, then we will send that on the receipt. And speaking of live auction, that reminded me, that was the one form I didn't show you guys really quickly. Under 5 and 5, create auction form, you see where up at the top it says select auction type. You have silent and you have live. And the forms I was showing you earlier were for the silent auction. But if you tell it live auction, it'll show you there's only 4 forms that they have for your live auction items. And if you double click on this one, It has your auction number, your name, the item, the description. This one doesn't have a value in it, but it would pull the value that you put in there. And again, you can do this on 2 or 3 ply paper if you want, where you just put in the bidder number, how much they actually paid for it, and then they can sign it really quickly, and you can even write down their table number so you know when you go get that item who to take it back to. And then MDA has a copy, the guest has a copy. If you have any kind of forms you need them to fill out, you can put a copy with that so you know who it was. But this is just a great live auction form. And I found that over here on the left, it was the laser or pen feed printer form. And I got to that by checking this button for live auction. So we were looking at silent earlier that has all the options, and then you can go over to live. So I will take just another second to see if we have any questions, because I know this is a whole lot of information and not a whole lot of time, and it's a lot to digest, but I just like to stress the importance of getting things in there right the first time, so that way it saves you time of not having to go back and redo any work, and then when you come to getting reports, which we're going to look at next, it's all going to come together beautifully.
No. Okay. Well, let's answer this question. Oh, you did? Okay. Well, there's a question about, and I just want to, it raises another question. There's a question about entering sponsor-donated items as a deduction from their invoice. And that sounds probably like a side discussion for you, but it does raise a question that we want to clarify with everybody. The value of an auction item, there is a fair market value for the auction item. No matter how we got it, and whether it was donated to us, etc., that fair market value is established by the donor or by the marketplace. And there is no tax deduction for auction items that are sold at the fair market value or below. And so actually was asked this question the other day, if it was donated, don't they get to write off 100% of what they paid for the item? The answer to that is no. We are required to present a fair market value, and then anything they pay over it is the only part that's tax deductible. And it's not really coin of the realm in any other way. So please, if you have other questions about that, maybe send them to Catherine and we can answer them independently.
All right, so to wrap things up a little bit, I want to just look at a few reports that is going to show us the reward we get from getting all this information entered into Maestro. So if you go to 7 and 1, that's where we were earlier when we looked at that attendee report and the table seating report. I know it's a long list of reports. If you have something in mind that you're looking for, you can filter by category. If there's, if you're looking for a certain certificate, or you're looking for some kind of attendee report, you can narrow this down a little bit. I just like to search for the report I'm looking for because I usually know what it is. And one report that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of is the Auction Event Financial Summary. This report captures all your income, expense, guest, yield on your auction. I mean, it's a really thorough report that you can pull at any time during the data entry process that will give you or your superior an idea of where you guys are with this event. So the first thing that you'll look at, and this is also what we print at the end of the night when we're finished with an event, and we can get our net number from that so we can send out a quick email and let people know how it went. The first thing you get is the banquet revenue by recognition level. This is for what we at MD usually call ticket sales, or if people purchase a seat at a table or come to the event that way. It'll capture all of the recognition levels, and those were something that we have looked at when we were registering our guests. So if you have questions about that, we'll look at that later offline, but that's something that should have already been done up until this point. So it'll tell you how many different attendees you have, whether they're a guest of a sponsor, if they bought a ticket. So at any time you can look and see at this overall count how many people you have in Maestro and how many people you have registered to come to your event and how much revenue you generated from that. You also have your table sponsorship revenue. That'll tell you how much you've made in table sales. I know for some events the cost of the table is worked into the price of the sponsorship. So like this table has a $0 cost. Well, it's likely that they purchased a sponsorship and the table price was included in that. So it'll tell you how much revenue you've actually made just from selling tables if that's something you do for your event. It'll also give you the auction revenue by auction. So your fund and item we talked about is your mission, where people go to record mission moment or research camp. So it'll tell you how many people donate or how many bidders buying units donated to that. You know, obviously your value is going to be 0 and you won't have any that were not sold. But if you want to know, oh, how much did the mission drive do? You'll find it on this fund and item line. If your auction is in sections, you'll have to do the math to find out how much it raised. If you just have a silent auction, it'll tell you how many items you had for that, what the value of it was, how many didn't sell, the value of what didn't sell. If you purchased any items or had consignment items that you had to pay for, you need to make sure you enter that so it'll take that out of your total. And then it'll tell you what your actual bids were for people for their purchases. And then down at the bottom, it'll kind of sum it all up for you. But again, this is going to include your mission moment. So this is really like your full night of event income total right here. On the next page, anything you sold in the store. So if you had raffle tickets, balloon pop, line pull, it'll tell you how many you sold and how much they were worth. All your sponsorships will show here. And if you offer more than one, it'll tell you how many you sold, so you'll get a total amount of sponsorships. And then shield your eyes from these expense categories because they are not MBA's expense categories, and I can actually show you that really quickly. But it'll break up your expenses by direct and indirect. These only have the budgeted, so you'll see the actual amount is 0. Please, if you can guesstimate as closely as possible how much your expenses are going to be, enter them along the way. One, it'll save you time from having to print out a report from FNS and highlight line by line by line while you enter them into Maestro. You might as well just enter them in Maestro when you're entering them in FMS just to marry those together so you're not trying to cross-reference them later. But it'll also let you know how much you've spent or how much you anticipate on spending. So when we do get to this final page, you'll have a total here and you'll know your true net number, or and this would be a net next that includes indirect, but you know, you could just add that indirect cost back to your net and it'll tell you what MBA calls net. So this is great just because it sums up where you are at any given time, and it's great that you can also email it straight out of Maestro. You can make it a PDF and save it, and maybe week by week you can track your progress by looking at this. So this is just a great report that I love showing people. Another great thing, reports you can get for your auction are yield reports. You can get them by the item itself. So I just went to the one by catalog, and here's all the item numbers. Here's what they were valued at, and here's what they actually went for, and here's the yield it calculates for you, and it'll give you the name. So obviously this cruise didn't do very well. Somebody got a really cheap vacation out of us. Maybe that's not an item you want to get back for next year. And again, this is a sample, so that's why there's so many unsold. But if you have unsold items, it'll give you an idea of what those items are, and maybe that's not something you want to go after again next year. They also have a great summary report that'll tell you by category. So if you do put categories on your items, when we were looking at that report, where you enter your auction items, if you do put in categories, you'll know what categories did well, what your guests like, and what you should try to procure for next year. So again, I just typed in yield up at the top to limit my reports, and that's how I got these. Another good one is who bought what, and these come in all different sizes, shapes and sizes, but I like to do the details by descending with contact, because that one I feel gives me the most information. So I have their bidder number, their name, their address. If I've got their phone and table, it'll tell me that too. But I can see what these people purchased and how much they spent at my event. And it lets you know who you might want to follow up with because you see who your big spenders are at your event. And it goes descending, so your biggest spenders are going to be on that first page. And you can see maybe this person was really interested in camper art. Maybe this person was really interested in the wine pool. So you can see what was of interest to people and where they chose to spend their money for that night. And I'm going to close out this. You can get this by table. You can get one with tax deduction amounts on it. You can get it by last name. You can get it by who Q-checked. Tons of options here for those reports. So again, you can really get about anything out of here. And if you can't find it, let me know and I will help you, or Maestro can help us if I can't find it either. But tons of reports that come out of here. So I'm going to close this, and we did get a question about if people want to be invoiced. So if you send someone a receipt, maybe they lost it, or they say, hey, you know, my boss said the company's paying for this, can you send us an invoice? Again, you'll go to 6 and 2 where we were during the event, print and review statements, and you'll go find that person's bidder number, so say it's bidder 103, and you can just send them this receipt. And it's going to, again, have all of their information on it, tax deductible amount, how much they owe. They can cut this off, mail it back in with a check. So if people want an invoice for their purchases night of, you can just go back to where you print their receipt. So
and Kathleen, how about in the case where someone Q-checked when they walked in? So they gave you a credit card, but they come up to you when they get their receipt and they're picking up their items and say, oh, you know, I would like an invoice for this rather than charging it to this credit card. How would you change that particular piece in the system to show that it's not to be charged to that card that we have on file?
Sure. So if anybody wants to make any changes, like Jordan was saying, credit card related because they did Q-check, if you come up to the toolbar and click Q-check, let me go to post-event here. Once you prepare for the upload, it's going to tell you how much you're charging people night of, but you'll have this list that has everybody's name. So if Adam says, hey, you know, this was all company related, don't put it on my card, he'll have a card number here. You can simply delete Adam's card number off the system, because if you do leave it in here, it will charge it. If he gives you a company card, you can add that card and then delete his personal card. So there's a couple ways you can do it that will be outlined on the green piece of paper that will come with your Q-check. But you come over to Q-check, and this is where you come under this attendee list, where you can add credit cards, delete credit cards, you know, make sure that you have the right information for people in case they want to change it.
And actually, Jordan, sometimes it's a matter of having a safe place where you keep notes, because we don't process credit cards till we get back to the office anyway. And so go through those notes, make sure that there's not something, you know, of that nature that we have to take care of, rather than if we can't handle it in the heat of battle there.
Yeah. And then, you know, people want to split their items. Maybe they just want all their auction items on one card and their mission on their corporate card, but they're going to pay for their auction card, but they want it all under, you know, their record. Again, you can add a card and it'll let you pick how much you want to put there. I do caution you, if somebody is having their company pay for something, you really should make a record for the company, because that person does not get the tax deduction because they did not pay for that. So if John Smith wants to pay for all his auction items with his personal card, but his company's going to buy his mission moment, you really should create a record for the company. And you can, I've had it where we have had a series of numbers. So maybe our bidders were 100 through 400, and then we use the series 800 to indicate companies that obviously they didn't attend the event because they're companies, but they did have purchases associated with their name. So maybe 800 was Coca-Cola and 801 was Kroger, and so we sent the invoice to John Smith's attention, but in the long run, Coca-Cola is going to get the tax write-off for that mission moment purchase. That's something I really want to stress. I saw the question about if somebody wants to use 2 cards. Absolutely, you can split it here with the add card, but if they're switching to a corporate card, that really should be on a corporate record. And you would do that by just going back to 3 and 1 and creating a record for that company. You don't have to register them to attend the event or seat them at a table, nothing like that. But you do want to make sure for tax purposes that MDA is doing their part, and we're separating that out accordingly. All right, so if we have any other questions, feel free to chat them in. We are coming close to the end of our time, but I'm happy to stay on for the rest of it if we have more questions.
Did we find the invoice question? How to show
yes,
it? Yeah, okay.
We showed invoices.
Can you find a corporate record in there? Or I don't know which database you're in. Yes, go to like Borden or Republic. Go to Republic.
Okay, let me pull theirs up because I don't have.
Oh.
We're going to pull up Houston really quickly because they have some examples of some of this that we're talking about with companies using their corporate cards and making purchases. I'm going to go into their people database and pull up a company like Republic.
There you go.
So this company, wow, okay, they
I chose that one.
covered all the camp scholarships that anybody from their company purchased that attended the event. They went ahead and paid for that. So on this all activity, and I'm sorry, I went a little quickly here. I went to Republic, I pulled up my people database, I went to company, and you can just type in here and to find somebody, you don't have to scroll. And I found Republic, and on this very last tab, all activity. That's how I got here. And you can see that all these purchases were made. Obviously, it was several people at their vendors. So.
And then show the statement.
And then you can print this out for them. This is their account summary statement. And, you know, if Ronnie Cooper, our contact, we just put this in the mail, say, here you go, Ronnie, and he'll take care of it. But Ronnie is not getting the tax benefit from any of this. Republic has their own record, and you see they're getting the full deductible amount. Because, again, it tells you the purchase price, fair market value, the charges. But if I wanted to know specifically, whoops, one too far, what Ronnie spent, I could go under people, type in Cooper, and I see this is his most updated record, I believe. This is Ronnie's record, and I see his purchases individually. These are not paid for by his company. We do have a question about text to bid and about if somebody creates their own bidder number. Yes, you're going to have people do these crazy things, and we can edit those, and that is a little bit deeper of a conversation that I'll take offline and show you some examples of. But the short answer is yes, we can edit this, so that's how we would handle it. We'd go into our text to bid, and we would find that person's record and make edits to that. But again, we can talk offline because that's a little more in-depth. So while I'm waiting to see if any more questions come in, I didn't want to focus too much on text to bid since I know not everyone's using it, but I'm going to click text to bid up at the top really quickly just to show one more thing and run out the clock here. Once you have all your winning bids and you have closed text to bid and it's done and over, you literally will come over here, and obviously you have to enter the information at the top, keyword, name, password, and you just click download bids from text to bid. depending on your internet connection, takes maybe about 5 to 10 seconds, if that, and it's going to pull all those bids that people made on their phones. Please, please, please make sure that where you are doing text-to-bid, that you have a Verizon and an AT&T and a T-Mobile and a Sprint and different service providers, and you walk around the room and have cell phone service. Can you guys text each other when you're in the room? Because if you can't text each other, those people are not going to be able to use text-to-bid. And if you all have an MDA Verizon phone, that's not going to be helpful. You need to know AT&T and find people with different types of phone services to make sure you can text. Because if you don't have a venue for text-to-bid, paper bid sheets. You don't want your guests all night getting error messages or it going really, really slow, or they can't access the short number with the keyword. I mean, it can be quite disastrous if you guys don't check the venue first. So please make sure that whatever you use for text-to-bid, that you check different carriers to make sure that you'll have service in the venue.
Yeah. Or if they have wide open Wi-Fi, it will work also. But you want to really test. It goes, text-to-bid is a texting format by default. It can work on Wi-Fi as the secondary carrier. It's actually better to turn off your Wi-Fi if there's good cell phone service in the facility. That's true of pretty much anything you do on your phone, actually. But if you can't get Wi-Fi and you can't text in that space, you can't use this technology without setting up a Wi-Fi system, and that can get very, very costly. So again, that's an independent question that we can handle offline, but the testing has to happen first.
So I haven't seen any more questions come across the chat. I'm done sharing information. I know it was a whole lot, and I appreciate everyone that hung on for the full 90 minutes. If you feel like you need more and maybe you're like, oh, that was great, I just wish I could do it one more time, my event's in 8 weeks, I'm nervous, I'm not going to remember this in 6 weeks. If you, again, we got to this screen that you're looking at right here by logging into Auction Maestro Pro with our credentials from our license, you can click on this Auction Maestro Pro tab, and they do have video trainings. Those are the short trainings I referred to a lot that are 2 to 3 minutes, some maybe 5, but they're really, really short trainings you can watch. And then they have free training over here. They have a getting started training, a night of the event training, and a text-to-bid training. These are all totally free. So I'm just going to click through really quickly. I clicked on night of the event, and I'm going to click continue. And on the next screen, it's going to tell me when they're having a seminar that I can attend. So today, they had one actually during our call. But they have another one on Thursday, September 17th at 11 to 12:30 Central. And this will adjust to your time zone. So if you're on, Eastern time, it'll, reflect 12 to 1:30 Eastern. But it'll let you know these are the next night of event trainings they're having and the dates and times. So they'll email you a confirmation. They'll even send you you can put it on your Outlook calendar from the email they send you. So that's something else if you just want a little bit more of this. It won't be tailored to how MDA does things, but it's still a really good training. Also, I'm going to pop up on the screen for anyone who wants to write down really quickly. We are going to have some Maestro office hours where I will be available for you to call. If you have any kind of questions, you want to review something, you want to go back over something, if you want to Skype with me and I'll look at your screen while we go through it together, I'm happy to help. So I just set some times in stone about when I'm available to do that, and my calendar is updated, so you don't even have to ask. If you just want to send me a calendar invite, you can use Scheduling Assistant to make sure somebody else hasn't already taken that time block. But this is when I can do it. If I'm not available or if you have an emergency you need answered right now, up on the screen also is the phone number for Maestro, and option 2 is tech support. They are on Pacific time, so they open 8:30 Pacific, so you might have to wait a little bit if you're on the East Coast. Or they have an email that they're pretty good about responding to. So just keep the time difference in mind if you feel like they're not responding to you quickly enough. So Thank you all for attending, and I really appreciate everyone's participation, the great questions you guys had. So good luck with your upcoming events, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or if you want to schedule some time to talk specifically about your event in Maestro. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.